I've done a lot more traveling this year than I normally do, which makes me incredibly thankful that I finally have back my NeoGeo Pocket Color. It's one of my favorite consoles to play games on, whether I'm at the airport,
on a flight, or just relaxing at the Airbnb.
Anyway, I'm Seattle bound, got about 4 hours in the air, and here are the 10 games I am still playing on the NeoGeo Pocket Color in 2024.
I'd originally played Baseball Stars on the NES, so to be able to play a faithful rendition of it portably on the NeoGeo Pocket Color is really a treat, because it's got every feature you would want for a baseball game, just portably. It's got a bunch of different teams to play for. It's got fantastic controls and great mechanics to make it one of the best baseball games really ever in handheld mode. Now, that's not talking about stuff like the show games on the PSP, we'll put those to one side, but for classic baseball game experiences like 16 32-bit games, this one's right up there. The gameplay is spectacular, the look is good, the sound is like shockingly really good for a handheld game, and I just have a ton of fun with it. This is one where I wanted to jump on it immediately because I had such positive memories of Baseball Stars on the NES and being able to play it on the original Neo Geo in arcades that I wanted to get it portably, and I'm not disappointed by it at all. One of the things that the Neo Geo Pocket does incredibly well, most people see it as a fighting game system, but there's a lot of really good sports games on it as well, and this is one of the best. Of course, what most people know the Neo Geo Pocket Color for is the absolutely fantastic library of fighting games that is on the console. And I think the best one is Capcom vs. SNK Match of the Millennium, which takes what was a wonderful series of games in arcades with the Capcom vs. SNK series and boils it down into a handheld system that just works, and it's intuitive and it's deep and it plays incredibly well. Now, when you're playing a fighting game on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, the first thing you might wonder is there's only two face buttons. What are you going to do to actually be able to inflict damage or do different moves? And the really nice thing about the system is that the buttons are pressure sensitive. So depending on how hard you press the button or how long you hold the button, more damage will be done or different moves will be executed. And it's just so cool to actually like have that click in your head and have it work. It's just a ton of fun. There's no shortage of excellent fighting games on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, but like I said, Capcom vs. SNK Match of the Millennium is the absolute best. And hey, cool bonus, if you have the Dreamcast Neo Geo Pocket link cable, you can actually connect Match of the Millennium with Capcom vs. SNK 2. It's really cool. It was because of Mega Man and Contra that I really got into run-and-gun shooters, but I do think that Metal Slug is a series that does not get its flowers often enough for being as influential in the industry as it is. Now, I know a lot of people love the Metal Slug series, so for those of you that are going, no, we talk about it all the time, just shut up for a minute. I want to talk about this one because I really do love this game. Metal Slug First Mission on the Neo Geo Pocket Color does something that really makes the game more accessible on a handheld console. So first off, the screen is smaller, so you're taking up a lot more real estate with your character, which does make the game a little bit more difficult. So rather than just instituting a one-shot, one-death mode, they actually put in a life bar, which makes the game a little bit more forgiving and a little bit more enjoyable. But outside of that, this is classic Metal Slug action, where your characters have incredible animations, the gameplay is difficult and fast and furious and fun, and there's awesome robots and awesome vehicles that you're going to find and have to fight these amazingly huge bosses as you play through the game. It's a wonderful experience, one of the best games on the console. Now, as much as I love my Neo Geo Pocket, I was not someone that was really considering it to be a spectacular RPG machine. And in a lot of folks' eyes, it won't be, because it's something where they see the games that are offered on it as an RPG, and they're a bit clunky. And Biomotor Unitron is truly a little bit clunky. It is a game that shows its age. But as someone that has been playing RPGs now since 1988, with Bard's Tale 2, The Destiny Knight on my Commodore 64, clunkiness don't bother me at all, and I love Biomotor Unitron. It is such a clever game where you are controlling these little robots in an RPG turn-based combat scenario, and it's just a really, really interesting title. You're able to purchase upgrades for them. There's I'm not going to say it's deep combat. Like, it's pretty much Pokemon combat. You pick an attack and you go, and that's it. But it's still fun. It's still a really solid title, and something that I really was excited to find when I discovered it at the Exchange in Cleveland when I was at the Cleveland Gaming Classic. It's just a really awesome game to have in a collection, and one that was not something I expected to get early in my Neo Geo Pocket pursuit. By today's standards, Dark Arms Beastbuster 1999 might not be the most ambitious action RPG out there. But for when it released in 1999, this is a pretty clever and kind of in-depth title. So it's really neat. You play as a character and your job is to shoot zombies and demons that are on the loose. And as you kill them, you're going to collect their souls. I guess it could not be souls. It might be something else. I don't know what it is. But basically, they drop stuff, you collect it, you move on. And the gameplay's a little bit like a cross between Zombies Ate My Neighbors and Crystalis, where your gun that you use will have a different power level based on how long you let it charge up, kind of like the sword in Crystalis. And it just feels like something that stepped out of the Zombies Ate My Neighbor universe, even though I know this is a sequel to Beastbusters, which was an arcade shooter. It's not the most intuitive game. There are definitely some things as you play it where you go like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do now? But if you can start to figure that stuff out, and it does help if you have a manual, the game is a lot of fun. Definitely worth checking out. And it is available on the NeoGeo Pocket Color Selection Volume 1. So if you want to play it on the Switch, that's an option for you. There's some really creative puzzle games or classic kind of arcade style games on the NeoGeo Pocket as well. And one of my favorites is a game called Crush Roller, which just based on the concept alone is so stupid simple that anyone can play it, but the gameplay is really challenging and offers something that's not seen in a lot of places. So the basic idea is you need to paint the street. You move around this maze and your character will turn the maze to a different color, and you need to cover up every single space on the map with the color that your character is. It's a little bit like Splatoon in that regard. And where the game gets really interesting is it actually sends enemies after you, so you have to avoid them. And there's also enemies that will wake up after a certain amount of time and start walking through the paint you've already laid down and put footprints in it, so you have to go back over it, and you can run them over and get them off the map. It's really cool. There's also some paint rollers which speed up your movement. It's a solid, fun game. There's some really, really creative puzzle games on here, but for me, Crush Roller is the best. Back to fighting games now, and this is King of Fighters Round 2, a sequel to a game that originally released on the OG NeoGeo Pocket, which I actually just picked up at Torque Gaming Expo, thanks to Radical Reggie. It's a really solid fighter. Is it as good as Match of the Millennium? No, it's definitely not as full-featured as Match of the Millennium, but if you are a fan of the King of Fighters universe, which I am, this is a must-own for anyone that loves that franchise. You have a ton of classic King of Fighters characters. The gameplay is solid and does play like a solid King of Fighters game. It is a wonderful title and a wonderful addition to that universe that kind of gets overlooked and kind of gets ignored, which is a shame because I really do think this is an enjoyable title. It's one where it's not expensive either, which is really nice. A lot of NeoGeo Pocket Color games can be very pricey, and this one doesn't really top out too high. It's something that you can actually pick up pretty regularly. Definitely worth checking out. If you're a fan of fighting games or you just really like the King of Fighters universe, this should absolutely be in your collection. Definitely worth playing. And if you do not have a NeoGeo Pocket to play it on, it is available in other ways on the Nintendo Switch or other consoles that have access to the NeoGeo Pocket Color selections. And much like Match of the Millennium and Card Fighters Clash, this is actually one that does connect to the Dreamcast via the NeoGeo Pocket Color link cable. This will actually communicate with King of Fighters 99 Evolution. Sonic the Hedgehog on the NeoGeo Pocket Color does something really remarkable. It makes a fantastic Sonic game on a non-Sega console, and it just is so much fun. And this is really kind of the start of when Sega started to branch out a little bit, because this was after the Dreamcast had started to kind of die off a little bit, and we knew kind of the hints were in the air that this was going to be a little bit of a different Sega experience going forward. And this was our first Sonic game, I believe, on a third-party console. So if I'm wrong on that, please let me know in the comments. I'm sure you'll correct me. But the gameplay is solid. It's a really fun game. It is super fast. It is a classic Sonic the Hedgehog experience. And really interestingly, from what I understand, the guys that developed this actually ended up doing the Sonic Advance games on the Game Boy Advance, which is really cool. I just love this game. This is the one that kind of capped off the summer of Sega for me, and I'm so happy that I was able to find it. It's not an expensive game either. It's only around $40, and if you love Sonic and you have a NeoGeo Pocket Color, you need to check this one out. Samurai Showdown 2 is actually the first game I purchased for the NeoGeo Pocket Color. It was one that I saw at a local store here in Kalamazoo, and I never, ever, ever see NeoGeo Pocket Color stuff. So I immediately jumped on it, thinking this would probably be the only one I ever bought, because not only had I never seen the games, I never saw the console either. But I got lucky this summer, and I was able to start adding to that collection. And the reason I picked this one up is because Samurai Showdown, or Samurai Spirits if you're in Japan, is one of my favorite fighting game franchises. And it's one that I don't think gets enough recognition for being as influential and as important in the gaming industry as it is. It's one that really, to me, put SNK on the map, because before Samurai Showdown really found its groove, we were getting stuff like the original Fatal Fury and the original Art of Fighting, which, while I love those games, looking at them compared to Samurai Showdown, the original, is an archaic experience and a little bit clunky. And this one here is a continuation of a fantastic franchise in Samurai Showdown. This is just a wonderful game. Is it as good as Match of the Millennium? No. Is it as good as King of Fighters Round 2? Probably not. But it is one that has a soft spot in my heart because this is the one that started the collection up for me. I don't think it's controversial to say that Capcom vs. SNK Card Fighters Clash is the best RPG system on the NeoGeo Pocket Color. It is a card fighter. It's a very straight up and easy to understand card fighter, but it is executed so beautifully well that you just can't help but fall in love with this game because it's just intuitive. It's easy to understand what you need to do. You get to build a deck of characters from both SNK and Capcom, featuring not just fighting game characters, but from like the entire spectrum of these characters' history, and you get to add them onto your teams, and they fight each other. Each card has a point value, and that point value is basically what their attack value is, and you are able to block attacks with your characters that you have in play. You're able to inflict damage on your opponent's life meter, and as you whittle them down, you will win the match. It's a really fun game, and at its surface, it's very simple. It's very basic, it's very straightforward and easy to understand, but where the game really just kind of leans into how awesome it is when you actually start building your own decks and collecting cards and really expanding out from just being a baseline game at the start. It's a wonderful title.
Sure, it doesn't have the biggest library in the world, but I do love the NeoGeo Pocket Color. It's one of my favorites to play on, and it's great whether you're playing it on original hardware, on the Switch with the different NeoGeo Pocket Color packs, or you're emulating it. There's some great game options there. Let me know in the comments down below your favorite NeoGeo Pocket Color games. Until next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.